President Biden is waging war on independent workers. This will hurt an already anemic labor market. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. Over 70 million Americans work on their own rather than for traditional companies. They include freelance writers, designers, programmers, truckers, rideshare drivers, drivers for hire, primarily Uber and Lyft, food deliverers, accountants, architects, construction, at-home caregivers, and more. Most do work for 2 or 3 companies at a time. They are often hired for a specific project. Most find work using online platforms. Companies use independent contractors to enable them to easily gear up if there's a surge in demand. The flexibility improves productivity, efficiency, and the ability to respond to changing circumstances. Most independent workers like the flexibility it gives in balancing their personal and professional lives. The phenomenon of non-traditional work practices has been labeled the gig economy. No surprise, unions hate the gig economy. These workers are just about impossible to organize. So big labor has been pushing laws and regulations to force gig workers to come under the law not as independent contractors, but rather as traditional company workers. These contractors or their clients would thus have to pay workers' comp insurance, health insurance, overtime, and in many cases, union dues. In other words, their services would become immensely more expensive, which would mean in most cases, less work. Now, this is not theory. California several years ago passed legislation labeled AB5 to force companies to reclassify most gig workers as traditional employees. The law has been a disaster. Truckers, food deliverers, and Uber and Lyft and other ride-hailing services warned it would lead to massive price increases. That's why voters approved a referendum exempting them from the new law. Others haven't been so fortunate. It turns out that since AB5 became law in January 2020, self-employment in California has plunged 10.5%, and overall employment in the once Golden State is down 4.4%. The labor participation rate has declined 6.5%. All this is a social disaster. Nonetheless, the Biden Labor Department just issued a rule imitating AB5 to force companies across the entire nation to reclassify millions of independent workers as traditional employees. Bye-bye to using freelancers to work on a specific project. Get ready for fewer opportunities for people to work the way they want. There are plenty of rules around to deal with companies that indeed exploit gig workers, that is, firing people and then bringing them back as independent contractors, thereby avoiding the cost of benefits. With its new rule, the Labor Department is doing the bidding of big labor at the expense of the independence of millions of workers. Legal challenges are starting, and a new president or Congress next year should kibosh this assault on people's professional work choices. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.